The shimmer in the air was all wrong. It hovered just above the scorched ground, vibrating with a silence that screamed. Elara knelt, the dust biting at her knees, her breath catching in her throat. Inside the shimmering distortion, a small hand appeared, pressing against the invisible wall. It was too small, too fragile. Kael, her husband, reached out, his hand passing right through the air, but he felt nothing. Just the strange hum. He looked at Lyra, his eyes wide with a question they both knew was too big to answer. A faint cry, like a bell echoing in an empty cavern, drifted from inside the distortion. Lyra pushed harder against the invisible wall. She felt a faint warmth now, like sunshine on her skin after a long winter. The cry grew louder, a child's wail, thin and heartbreaking. This was not a human sound. This was something else entirely. The faint warmth grew into a comforting heat. Then, with a soft pop, the air rippled, and a tiny being tumbled out onto the red dust. It was a girl. Her skin was a pale violet, and her large, dark eyes, like pools of midnight, blinked rapidly. She had no hair, only delicate ridges running along her scalp. But her form was unmistakably that of a child, vulnerable and alone. Elara gathered her into her arms, the violet skin surprisingly soft against her own rough farming clothes. The child clung to her, a desperate grip. Kael watched, his rifle lowered. They were a small colony on the fringe of the galactic map. They were supposed to be alone out here. This child proved them wrong. That day they named her Lyra. She was their secret, their miracle, and their silent burden. They raised her as their own. Lyra grew quickly. Her violet skin seemed to absorb the light, giving her a faint glow in the twilight hours. Her large, dark eyes missed nothing. She heard the softest rustle of leaves beyond the hydro farm and could taste the subtle differences in the colony's recycled water supply. She learned human ways. She learned to laugh, a sound like wind chimes. She learned to cry, tears hot on her cheeks. Her human parents, Elara and Kael, taught her about the sun-drenched fields, the importance of community, and the quiet dignity of hard work. They had another child, a boy named Finn, 4 years after Lyra had arrived. Finn looked like Kael with his dark, unruly hair and freckles. He adored Lyra. To him, her violet skin was normal. Her quiet nature was just how Lyra was. He'd follow her through the communal gardens, pointing out the plumpest watermelons. Lyra would nod, her fingers brushing the green rinds, sensing the ripeness without needing to cut them open. She felt the vibrations of the insects deep within the soil. She heard the tiny sighs of the plants as they grew. She kept these senses to herself. She wanted to be like everyone else. Life in the New Haven colony was hard but simple. They lived in dome-shaped habitats, powered by geothermal vents. The air was breathable, but the soil was stubborn. Water was the most precious resource, filtered and recycled constantly. Commander Eva Rostova, the colony leader, often spoke of the need for new water sources. Their main hydro farm, fed by underground springs, was slowly drying up. It was a quiet worry that hung in the air like the ever-present dust. Lyra helped Elara and Kael in the hydro farm. She felt the plants thirst before the moisture sensors could. She would subtly guide Kael to the sections that needed more attention, saying, "Father, these leaves feel a little tired here." Kael, a man of few words, would just nod and adjust the nutrient flow, trusting her instincts. He had learned that Lyra's instincts were rarely wrong. Elara watched Lyra with a quiet concern. She saw the girl's efforts to blend in, to hide her unique traits. She saw the way Lyra's eyes would sometimes track something far beyond their atmosphere, something no human eye could see. She knew Lyra was different. She also knew Lyra was their daughter. One evening, as Lyra helped Elara prepare dinner, a faint, high-pitched whine began to pulse through the colony's communications array. It wasn't loud enough for most to notice, but Lyra felt it resonate in her bones. It was a cold sound, a logic without warmth. She paused, her hand hovering over a nutrient paste dispenser. Elara looked at her. "What is it, dear?" she asked. Lyra shook her head. "Nothing, Mother, just a strange feeling." But the feeling lingered. Later that night, Lyra lay in her bunk, staring at the dimly lit ceiling. The whine was still there, a whisper in the back of her mind. It felt like a probe searching. She felt a strange pull, a sense of something ancient stirring within her. She closed her eyes, trying to block it out. She heard Finn's soft snores from the next bunk. He was dreaming of something joyful, she could sense it. She wrapped her arms around herself, a chill despite the warmth of the habitat. Days turned into weeks. The strange whine became a constant hum for Lyra, sometimes fading, sometimes intensifying. It felt like a presence, a cold eye watching from afar. Commander Rostova held a community meeting. Her face was grim under the habitat's artificial light. "Our long-range sensors have detected an unknown energy signature," she announced. "It's distant, but it's consistent. We don't know what it is. We are maintaining radio silence and caution." Jerk, a colony engineer known for his sharp mind and sharper tongue, spoke up. "Could it be a rescue mission? Maybe from old Earth?" Commander Rostova shook her head. "The energy signature is unlike anything we have on record. It's not human." Lyra listened, her heart thumping a strange rhythm against her ribs. She looked at Elara and Kael. Their faces were etched with worry. Finn, sitting beside her, fidgeted, sensing the tension. Lyra knew what it was. She felt it in her blood. It was them, her people. The thought sent a tremor through her. The next few weeks were filled with an uneasy quiet. The hum in Lyra's mind grew stronger. She started having fragmented visions. Flashes of cold metal, brilliant light, and a sense of vast, desolate space. She saw faces with eyes like hers, but without the warmth she knew. She saw herself, younger, smaller, encased in something crystalline. These visions were unsettling. They felt real, like buried memories trying to surface. She tried to dismiss them, to focus on her human life. She helped Finn with his lessons, teaching him about the life cycles of the fungi they cultivated for food. She watched Kael meticulously repair a leaky pipe in the hydro farm, admiring his patience. She smelled the earthy scent of the soil and the metallic tang of recycled air. These were her realities. These were her people. One afternoon, Finn discovered a strange device while exploring a rocky outcrop far from the colony's perimeter. It was a small, smooth orb, the color of obsidian, humming with a faint internal light. He ran back, breathless, and showed it to Lyra. "Look what I found, Lyra, it's so cool." Lyra took the orb. As her fingers touched it, a jolt went through her. The hum in her mind intensified and images flooded her awareness. A vast, silent ship, sleek and dark. Figures in long, flowing robes, their movements precise, economical. And a voice, cold and clear, speaking a language she did not know but understood with chilling clarity. It spoke of Xylos. It spoke of the Lost One. It spoke of return. She dropped the orb as if it had burned her. Finn looked at her, confused. "What's wrong, Lyra?" Lyra swallowed, her throat dry. It's nothing, Finn. It's just a strange rock." She quickly picked it up and hid it in her pocket. She felt a profound dread settle in her stomach. That night, Lyra couldn't sleep. The orb pulsed faintly under her pillow. The alien voice echoed in her mind. "Xylos, return." She slipped out of her bunk and tiptoed to the communal kitchen. She sat alone in the quiet, the darkness pressing in around her. The human colony was so small, so vulnerable. And her people, she sensed, were vast and powerful. She touched her violet skin, tracing the delicate ridges on her scalp. This was not human. This was their mark. A silent tear traced a path down her cheek. She was an alien. She was a burden. A voice, soft and unexpected, broke the silence. "Can't sleep, Lyra." It was Elara. She walked over and sat beside her daughter, her hand resting gently on Lyra's back. Elara's touch was warm, comforting. Lyra leaned into it. "I had a bad dream," Lyra whispered. Elara nodded, her eyes understanding. "Sometimes dreams can feel very real," she said. "But you are safe here." "Always?" Lyra looked at her mother, seeing the lines of worry around her eyes, the tired set of her mouth. She felt a fierce protectiveness. She was safe, yes, but were they? The presence in the sky grew bolder. A massive ship, dark and angular, appeared on the far horizon, a silent sentinel. It didn't broadcast any hostile intentions, but its sheer size was a declaration. Commander Rostova called an emergency meeting. The fear was palpable. "It's them," Lyra whispered to Kael, her voice barely audible. Kael's hand tightened on her arm. Jerk, the engineer, stood up. "Commander, we need to consider all options. What if they are here for resources? What if we can negotiate?" Commander Rostova looked directly at him. "We don't know their intentions, Jerk. We maintain our defensive posture." The colony's limited defenses, a few energy turrets, seemed laughably small against the behemoth in the sky. Days passed in a tense standoff. The alien ship remained, silent and unmoving. Commander Rostova sent out a standard first contact message, identifying their colony and requesting their purpose. There was no reply. Lyra felt the alien presence growing stronger in her mind. The voice, cold and clear, was now almost constant. It was urging her, calling to her. She felt an ancient, deep-seated command to obey. It was a struggle to resist. She started to exhibit strange abilities under stress. Once, during a power surge that threatened the hydrofarm, Lyra instinctively reached out, and the fluctuating energy flow stabilized. The lights flickered back to normal, and the hum of the systems returned to a steady rhythm. No one saw her do it, but she felt the drain on her own energy, leaving her weak and trembling. She knew these were her people's powers, raw and untamed. They were terrifying. One morning, a smaller craft detached from the massive alien ship. It was sleek and utterly silent as it descended towards the colony. Commander Rostova ordered everyone to their habitats. The ground team, heavily armed, positioned themselves around the landing zone. Lyra watched from her habitat window, her heart pounding. The craft landed with barely a whisper, stirring only a few grains of dust. A ramp extended, glowing with a soft, inner light. 3 figures emerged. They were tall and slender, their forms draped in robes the color of deep space. Their skin was the same pale violet as Lyra's, their faces serene, almost devoid of expression. Their eyes, though large and dark, held a cold, analytical gaze. The central figure, taller than the others, stepped forward. This was Elder Vorlag. Lyra felt a strong surge from him, a dominant intelligence. He spoke in the alien language, the words echoing in Lyra's mind with perfect clarity. "We have come for Xylos. She is ours. She will return." His voice was not loud, but it carried an undeniable authority, like the turning of a great, unyielding gear. Commander Rostova, flanked by Kael and other colony members, stepped forward. "We don't understand your language," she stated, her voice steady but strained. "Please use the universal translator." Elder Vorlag remained silent for a moment, his gaze sweeping over the human faces, lingering briefly on Lyra, who stood partly hidden behind Kael. Then a voice, synthesized and perfectly accented, emanated from a device on his wrist. "We require Xylos. She is the lost seed. The prophecy demands her return." Commander Rostova frowned. "We do not know a Xylos. This is our colony. There is no one here by that name." Elder Vorlag's gaze settled on Lyra. "She is among you. We sense her presence. The prophecy of the first dawn speaks of her. She is destined to lead our people, the Lyraen, back to the Star Weavers." Lyra felt a chill run down her spine. The Lyraen, that was her name, not just a human name, but the name of her people. She felt the ancient memories, long suppressed, begin to flood her consciousness. The burning world, the crystalline chamber, the desperate launch. She had been sent away to survive. She was the last. Elder Vorlag extended a long, slender hand towards her. "Come, Xylos, your people await." Kael stepped in front of Lyra, shielding her. "She is Lyra. She is our daughter," he said, his voice firm. Elara moved to Lyra's side, placing a protective arm around her. Elder Vorlag's expression did not change. "Her human designation is irrelevant. She is of our blood. Our prophecy must be fulfilled." Over the next few days, the negotiations began. They were not negotiations, really, but a series of demands from the Lyraen. Elder Vorlag explained their history in chillingly logical terms. Their species, the Lyraen, had once been vast and powerful, masters of mental control and energy manipulation. But a great war, a forgotten conflict, had decimated their kind. Their leaders had sent a single child, a lost seed named Xylos, into the void, imbued with the potential to restore their lost powers and lead them in a new age. The child was meant to return when their civilization was on the brink, when their power was at its lowest ebb. That time was now. The Lyraen Empire was weakening, their connection to the Star Weavers, their source of cosmic energy, fading. Lyra, Elder Vorlag explained, was the key. She possessed the dormant abilities, the pure genetic code, to re-establish their connection. Without her, their species would face extinction. Commander Rostova presented the human perspective. "Lyra has been raised here. She is a part of our family, our community. She has human values, human emotions. She is not a tool for your prophecy." Elder Vorlag's synthesized voice was devoid of any understanding. "Emotions are illogical. Family bonds are inefficient. The survival of a species transcends individual sentiment." Jerk, the pragmatic engineer, spoke up during one of the tense meetings. "Commander, if they offer us advanced technology, resources. Our hydro farm is failing. Our colony needs help." His words hung in the air, a wedge between Lyra and her community. Lyra looked at him, feeling a pang of betrayal. Was she just a means to an end for some of them? Finn, Lyra's younger brother, reacted differently. He saw the coldness in the alien's eyes. He saw the fear in his parents' faces. He knew Lyra was his sister. He started sneaking into the communal library, searching ancient texts and data files about lost civilizations, hoping to find something that might help Lyra. He found vague references to star seeds and chosen ones in old myths, but nothing concrete. He became Lyra's shadow, her staunch defender. He would glare at anyone who spoke about Lyra as it or the alien. He even tried to talk to one of the alien guards, asking them, "Why do you want my sister? She belongs here." The guard simply looked through him, unblinking, unfeeling. Lyra's internal conflict raged. The ancient memories surfaced with more clarity now. She remembered a world of pure thought, where emotions were carefully controlled, where logic was the only guide. She remembered the vastness of space, the cold beauty of the stars. She remembered the whispers of the star weavers, a power that vibrated through her very being. But then she would look at Ilara's calloused hands, hands that had comforted her, hands that had worked to grow food for their community. She would hear Finn's excited chatter, his innocent joy. She would smell Kael's pipe tobacco, a warm, familiar scent. She tasted the synthetic protein paste that sustained them, and she remembered the simple comfort of shared meals. These were the anchors of her human life. These were the things that made her feel whole. The Lyraen grew impatient. Elder Vorlag issued an ultimatum. "Surrender Xylos by the next cycle, or we will take her. Our need is absolute. Our power is superior." The threat was clear. The colony was in an uproar. Some, like Jerk, argued for compliance. "We cannot fight them. We will all be destroyed." Others, like Commander Rostova and Kael, refused to give up Lyra. "We don't abandon our own." Elara held Lyra close. "You are our child, Lyra. No one will take you." Lyra felt the weight of everyone's expectations. The Lyraen wanted her to embrace her destiny, to be the cold, logical leader they needed. The humans wanted her to stay, to be the warm, emotional daughter they loved. She felt torn, like a bridge spanning two impossible shores. The hum in her mind from the Lyraen grew louder, almost deafening. It was a mental command, a subtle but relentless pressure to yield. She felt her own power stirring, responding to the call. Her violet skin seemed to glow more brightly. Her senses sharpened to an unbearable degree. She felt the fear radiating from the humans, the desperate need from the Lyraen. One night Lyra sought out Finn. He was asleep, curled up in his bunk. She sat beside him, watching his peaceful face. He twitched, and Lyra instinctively reached out. She touched his forehead, and a wave of his dreams washed over her. Simple dreams of playing in the hydro farm, of eating sweet berries, of Lyra telling him stories. Dreams full of love and laughter. Her alien mind, trained for logic, found these dreams illogical, inefficient. But her human heart, the one Elara and Kael had nurtured, found them beautiful. She understood then. The Lyraen had forgotten how to dream. They had traded emotion for power, and in doing so they had lost something vital. They were broken. They needed her not for power, but for healing, for something they had forgotten. The next morning, Lyra stood before Commander Rostova, Elara, Kael, and a nervous Jerk. She felt the presence of Elder Vorlag and his guards just outside the meeting room, their silent power pressing in. Lyra took a deep breath. "I will go with them," she said, her voice clear and steady. Elara gasped, tears springing to her eyes. Kael's face was etched with pain. Jerk looked relieved. Commander Rostova looked surprised. "Lyra, you don't have to do this." Lyra shook her head. "I do, but not for the reasons they think." She turned to Jerk. "The Lyraen have offered assistance with our hydro farm. They have the knowledge to help us. They have the power." Jerk's eyes widened. "They did," Lyra nodded. "They did. In exchange for my peaceful departure, they will share their advanced environmental restructuring knowledge. They can help your water systems, your soil." This was a calculated risk. Elder Vorlag had not explicitly offered this, but Lyra had sensed it. Their cold logic demanded efficiency. A peaceful transfer would be efficient, and a working hydro farm would keep the humans from fighting back. She was leveraging their own nature against them. Commander Rostova's eyes narrowed. "How do you know this, Lyra?" Lyra looked at her, her dark eyes steady. "I sense it. Their purpose is my return, but a peaceful transfer benefits them too. They value efficiency above all else. They need a stable environment for their lost seed to return to." Outside, Elder Vorlag's voice resonated through the comms. "Xylos, time is of the essence." Lyra turned to the door. "I will go. But they must keep their word." Kael stepped forward, his voice gruff. "You will not leave alone. We will come with you as far as they allow." Elara nodded fiercely. Lyra smiled, a small, sad smile. "No, father, this is my path. My choice." Lyra walked out of the meeting habitat, her head held high. Elder Vorlag and his two guards waited. He looked at her, his cold eyes assessing. "You understand your duty, Xylos?" Lyra met his gaze. "I understand a great many things, Elder Vorlag, things you may have forgotten." She paused. "For my peaceful return, your people will share their knowledge of environmental restoration with this colony. You will assist them in repairing their hydrofarm and securing their water supply." Elder Vorlag's eyes widened, a flicker of something almost like surprise in their depths. His logic circuits whirred. It was an unexpected demand. But it was efficient. It removed a potential obstacle. "Agreed," he stated, his synthesized voice as flat as ever. Lyra turned to her family. Finn ran to her, hugging her tightly. "Don't go, Lyra. Please." Lyra knelt, wrapping her arms around him. She whispered, "Be brave, little brother. I will always be with you." She pulled back, looking at Elara and Kael. "Thank you," she said simply. "For everything." Elara embraced her, holding her tight, tears streaming down her face. Kael placed a hand on Lyra's shoulder, his grip firm. He just nodded, unable to speak. Lyra then walked towards the waiting alien craft. She felt the hum of power, the cold logic of her birth species. She stepped onto the ramp, turning one last time to look at her human family, her human home. The air shimmered around her. The ramp retracted, and the ship ascended silently, disappearing into the vast, inky blackness above. Inside the alien craft, Lyra felt an oppressive silence. The two guards stood perfectly still, like statues. Elder Vorlag turned to her. "You will undergo the reintegration process. Your human memories will be compartmentalized. Your Lyraen essence will be awakened." Lyra met his gaze, her violet eyes burning with a quiet fire. "No," she said. Elder Vorlag tilted his head, a gesture Lyra now understood as their equivalent of a frown. "You will comply." Lyra shook her head. "I will not. My human memories, my human emotions are not a weakness. They are my strength. They are what you have lost." She felt a surge of her own nascent power, a warmth emanating from her core. It wasn't the cold, calculated energy of the Lyraen. It was something different, something warmer. It was a power born of love and connection, a power they would not understand. The ship journeyed through the void for weeks. Lyra refused the reintegration. She spent her days in meditation, exploring the depths of her own abilities. She found she could manipulate the ship's internal energy flows, subtly, silently. She could send waves of quiet discomfort through Elder Vorlag's mental pathways when he tried to assert his control. She learned to project her human memories, not as a coherent story, but as bursts of emotion, of sensory experience. She sent them flashes of Finn's laughter, the smell of fresh rain on the colony's arid ground, the taste of Elara's nutrient cakes, Kael's comforting silence. Elder Vorlag found these sensations jarring, illogical, yet strangely compelling. He began to observe her more closely, a flicker of curiosity in his usually impassive gaze. The Lyraen home world was a testament to their logic. Vast, gleaming cities of metal and light, perfectly ordered, perfectly sterile. There were no natural landscapes, only engineered environments. The air was controlled, filtered to absolute purity. The people moved with a chilling efficiency, their minds linked in a vast, silent network. Lyra felt the full force of their collective consciousness, a cold, empty hum. She was presented before the council of elders, ancient beings whose forms were barely visible beneath their elaborate robes, their minds a nexus of pure intellect. Elder Vorlag presented her, detailing her human upbringing, her refusal to be reintegrated. He spoke of her strange, emotional resistance. One of the elders, a being named Coral, whose mental presence felt like a freezing void, projected a thought directly into Lyra's mind. "You are the lost seed. Your purpose is to restore the Lyraen. Your human attachments are a corruption. Lyra met Coral's mental probe with a torrent of human emotion. She showed them the fear of loss, the joy of connection, the pain of betrayal, the comfort of belonging. She showed them the raw, chaotic beauty of life on New Haven. She showed them Finn's face, radiant with uncomplicated love. These emotions were alien to the Lyraen, illogical yet undeniable. Coral recoiled, a ripple of disturbance through the silent council. "What is this?" Coral projected. "This is illogical, this is noise." Lyra stepped forward. "This is humanity, and it is not noise, it is the music you have forgotten. You have built a perfect world, but it is empty. You seek power, but you have lost your connection to the Star Weavers because you have lost your connection to yourselves. The Star Weavers do not resonate with cold logic. They resonate with life, with growth, with the very things you discarded." She then showed them the memory of the dying hydro farm, the colony's struggle. She projected her promise to the humans, the deal for their environmental knowledge. You wish for efficiency? Then help them. Show them your power through kindness, not just through might. Learn from their resilience, learn from their love. A debate, cold and calculated, began among the elders. Some argued for the immediate reintegration of Lyra, to strip away her corruption. Others, including Elder Vorlag, who had witnessed Lyra's strange power and her unconventional wisdom, argued for a more observational approach. He saw the logic in her words, the potential for a new pathway, even if it was paved with the illogical. The colony on New Haven began to receive aid. Lyraen environmental specialists, their movements precise and emotionless, began to work on the hydro farm. They implemented advanced filtration systems, restored the soil, and even discovered new geothermal sources. The humans, wary but desperate, observed them. Jerk, initially skeptical, saw the rapid progress and grudgingly admitted their efficiency. Commander Rostova, however, still viewed them with suspicion. She did not trust a species that could so easily dismiss love. Lyra began her own work on the Lyraen home world. She was given a chamber, sterile and silent, for her ray integration. But Lyra used it for deep meditation. She did not compartmentalize her human memories. Instead, she used them. She connected with the faint, residual echoes of human emotion that she could sense in the Lyraen collective consciousness. These were not her emotions, but those of Lyraen ancestors, from a time before the Great War, a time when they were not so cold. She found faint whispers of curiosity, of wonder, of even a primitive form of familial bond. She began to project these echoes softly, subtly, through the Lyraen network. It was like planting tiny, vibrant seeds in a vast, desolate desert. Her unique abilities grew. She could now project images and sounds directly into the minds of the Lyraen, not just emotions. She showed them the vibrant colors of a sunset on New Haven, the sound of Finn's laughter echoing through the habitat, the warmth of Elara's embrace. These were things the Lyraen had only known through data, never through sensation. The elders began to show subtle changes. Coral, the most rigid of them, found himself experiencing a strange, tingling sensation in his neural network, a flicker of something akin to curiosity. Elder Vorlag found himself replaying a projected memory of Lyra's human parents, their fierce protectiveness, their simple affection. It was illogical, yet it held a strange power. Lyra then addressed the question of the Star Weavers. She explained to the elders that their connection had not been severed by power, but by isolation. Their single-minded pursuit of logic had cut them off from the natural flow of universal energy. She argued that the Star Weavers responded not just to pure thought, but to harmony, to balance, to the complex tapestry of existence. To truly connect, they needed to embrace the illogical. They needed to embrace life in all its forms, even the emotional ones. This was a radical concept for the Lyraen. It challenged everything they were. The test came when a neighboring species, a race of aggressive mercantile beings, threatened the Lyraen borders, seeking to exploit their weakened state. The elders, in their cold logic, prepared for war, for total annihilation of the enemy. Lyra intervened. She stood before the council. "Your logic will lead to destruction. There is another way." She projected her vision. She showed them a path of negotiation, a solution that involved understanding the enemy's needs, not just crushing them. She showed them how to leverage their unique abilities, not for destruction but for diplomacy, for creating a shared future. She showed them a strategy that was illogical by their standards, but efficient in a way they had never considered: mutually beneficial coexistence. The elders, their minds now subtly influenced by Lyra's emotional projections, found themselves considering this illogical path. Elder Vorlag, who had witnessed Lyra's unwavering conviction, argued for her approach. He did not understand the emotions, but he understood the potential for a more stable outcome. He saw the cold logic in a warm approach. The Lyraen, led by Lyra, engaged in unprecedented negotiations. Lyra, using her unique understanding of both Lyraen logic and human emotion, acted as the bridge. She sensed the underlying fears of the mercantile race, their desperate need for resources. She used this to forge an alliance based on trade and shared security rather than conflict. It was a long, arduous process, but it worked. It was a victory not of power, but of understanding. The Lyraen species began to change. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, emotions began to stir within their collective consciousness. They started to experience curiosity, wonder, even a form of satisfaction in their work. Their cities, once sterile, began to incorporate organic elements. They cultivated strange, bioluminescent plants, not for efficiency, but for their beauty. They began to connect with the star weavers in a new way, their energy flowing more freely, revitalizing their empire not through cold power, but through a blossoming warmth. Lyra, now known as Xylos Lyra, stood at the pinnacle of her people, not as their cold leader, but as their heart. She had fulfilled the prophecy, but not in the way they had intended. She had not restored their lost power through brute force. She had restored their lost humanity. She had reconnected them to a deeper, more fundamental source of life and balance. One day, a small, sleek Lyraen ship returned to New Haven. Lyra emerged, her violet skin glowing with an inner light. She had grown, not just in power, but in presence. Commander Rostova, Elara, Kael, and Finn waited. The hydrofarm was flourishing, thanks to the Lyraen technology. New Haven was thriving. Finn ran to her, throwing his arms around her. "Lyra, you're back!" Lyra hugged him tightly, feeling the familiar warmth of his small body. "I told you I'd always be with you, little brother." She looked at Elara and Kael, tears welling in her eyes. "Mother, father!" They embraced her, a wordless connection that spoke volumes. The Lyraen delegation, including Elder Vorlag, observed from a distance. Their faces still held their characteristic serenity, but there was a subtle shift in their posture, a faint glimmer in their eyes that had not been there before. They were learning, they were beginning to understand. Lyra had bridged the impossible gap. She was the alien child raised by humans, and she had shown her own kind what it truly meant to live. The two species, once alien to each other, now shared a future, bound by the heart of a child who had chosen love over logic.